All right, everybody, can you hear us? This is our first time doing this, so there's a lot of stuff we may not be doing right here. Just want to make sure that people can hear us. Let us know in the comments. I'm doing this, so there's a lot of stuff may not be doing right here. Just want to make sure.
I'm hearing the playback.
I just muted it. I had it on. Can someone provide a comment and let us know if you are seeing us? Because the screen didn't change.
Might have to ask Mark. Maybe ask Mark what the hell button do we push? I can start. Hey, Rob, if you want, I can start answering a few questions on there while you're looking for whatever button you might need to push.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I don't know how to get rid of this damn thing. It worked fine this morning, but we didn't have our pictures on there.
Can you just take those? Can you go to the branding thing and just get rid of them?
Dude, I'm trying.
Oh, okay.
If I could, I would. All right, there we are.
Hey,
we're back. Couldn't figure out how to get the pictures on. Now I see us, but I don't see it actually. My YouTube feed didn't change.
Okay, so
now I see us on YouTube.
Okay, let's see here.
Okay, if you guys can hear us, Mark or somebody, let us know in the comments. You got Mutt and Jeff here trying to figure out how to use this live.
Geez, it still won't even let me make comments even on my phone. Okay, maybe I went to StreamYard. That's why.
All right, so let's take a look at the comments and see what questions people have. Shane, are you in this, or what are you doing?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right, so guys, we're gonna try to figure out how we make this thing work out. But Shane and I figured we'd be here to start answering questions. Obviously, we had a hitch up at the beginning of how to actually get this thing started right. We'll look at that and try to get better. Some of the more common questions we've been having is one where people asked about the prepping for the pre-coating. And so if anybody wants to know about that, we can talk a little bit about that. Shane, the big question that people were calling me and said, how do you actually pre-coat? Do you only use epoxy? Do you use varnish, or do you use any of the other stuff that's out there to pre-coat, standing sealer, shellac, etc.? Go ahead.
I only use just a clear coat of whatever epoxy I'm pouring that day, like whatever brand.
And then the other question that was on there was people were curious about, well, if you go over the side of it, is that going to affect the rest of the board because you've now put epoxy in an area where you didn't want epoxy? And my answer was, of course, no. You're going to mill that light period off anyway. Yeah.
As long as you zero off the top of the board before each cut. It doesn't matter how thick you pour that stuff, unless you're going to be running your bit through it though, so you don't want it to get too thick. Also, when I clear coat with the clear epoxy guys, just because people have asked me that too, and then they ask like, how long do I wait? I actually wait until the next day. So I know a lot of people are in a hurry. I totally understand that, but I'm just never in a hurry with this stuff anymore. I wait until the next day after I do a clear coat, then I pour, and I move on from there. Because if that epoxy's not set and you pour a color in it, it will run through cherry and maple and those lighter woods and make your work look like shit. Or, oh, sorry, crap.
Okay. So here's a question here. I'm not sure whether Brooks is serious. I think he is, because the next comment said with a 2-degree bit, haha. But you see the comment there, Shane, how do you deal with the fine detail in your work, such as when the thin line spacing is so close that you can't get the 15, I think he means 15-degree bit in there.
I think he means the 0.12 or the 0.125 cut, like the eighth of an inch deep that we would do, or 0.15. I thought that's what he meant, but
maybe so.
Yeah. So yeah, I know what you're saying. So sometimes it won't go. I use a 15-degree bit as about the most extreme that it gets, and if the bit doesn't go down all the way down 0.125, that usually won't matter, because I'm only going to be zeroing down, about a millimeter at the most below the top of the surface. So you don't need to be down that full eighth of an inch on those to keep your color. They won't go away. You just want to make sure your vectors are properly overlapped.
So another question. Well, you've got one here that it's not a question, it's a comment, and it says, I'll put it out here. Please make a detailed video on how to sand the epoxy to a mirror finish. So Shane, I had lots of questions on that, and my typical answer is that before I met you, I used to sand about 350, and then you talked me into 1500. Then you tried to talk me into 3000 and 4000. I just said I wasn't going there. I didn't need that kind of luster. So typically, folks, when I'm doing my epoxy projects, depending on what I'm doing, I'll probably sand up to 1000 or 1200 for an epoxy job, and as long as that looks good, I'm good with it. And especially a cutting board, if they're going to cut on it, I'm not going to go that high. But then I'm not making epoxy wall art on a cutting board like Shane is. So Shane, why don't you explain your process for how you go about it, especially for nice stuff?
Yeah, so I use the Mirka mesh now, and I start around 120, and I work my way up, 180, 240, 320, 400, 500, 600, 800, 1,000, 2, 3, 4, and then and actually once I get to 1,000 or 2,000. Sometimes I'll put a little bit of water on the board. I'll just do that wet. Then, if you wanted to stop at 4,000 or something, that's going to be fine. I go higher than that. I have grits up to 15,000, and then I switch over to this polishing system. It's probably overkill, but that's what people tell me. They say, "Oh, that's overkill," and then I say, "Well, look at my work. Do you see any other work like this?" No. So maybe it's not overkill. Maybe if you want your work to look like mine, then you'll do that. And if you're in a hurry and you don't want to wait or do that much sanding, that's totally fine. There's definitely projects where I've stopped at 3,000 and it's been fine, and then I go to the polishing system. But I know that I work a lot harder getting those swirl marks out. And I'm told that people wouldn't even care if there was really light swirl or spider marks in the work. I have OCD and I can't do it any other way. So I'm just kind of stuck that way.
I got you. So here's the next one, and this is one that I can answer some of these questions, but this is one I can't get to. You and I have talked about this before, and you tried to explain it to me. So let's see if you can explain it any simpler to the folks out there. Please, how about a recipe for flesh color epoxy as a starting point? In other words, how do you get to your flesh colors?
Okay, you start with a white base. All the time. And then, so this is the thing, guys. If you knew how many times I've been asked about color charts or color wheels and these other things. I mean, even by Rob a few years back, he was asking me all kinds of questions about how did I get this? How did I match these colors? Did I use what's that? What are those color things they use? There's like some big name that everybody goes by their color chart or their color like the identification codes, like a 4-digit number that identifies what color something is. There's a name for that. I think it starts with a P. But anyway, for some reason, guys, when I I've said this 1,000 times. You've probably heard me say it before, but if you believe in God and you believe he's handing out superpowers or something, I was not able to fly or see through ladies' clothes or turn invisible. But for some reason, at a very young age, I was able to just look at a color and then make that color with just the primaries and white and black. So I don't know how I get to those tones. I can tell you that, when if you're doing, okay, so like you saw the project I did where there was 37 colors with Tamika. She's African-American. Everyone thinks like, oh, okay, we got to go brown. It's actually not brown. If you look really close at that project, everybody's kind of orange, to be honest with you. All those colors that you see, those people, they're actually on the orange in the color chart if there's a name or a match or something like that, which sounds funny because you're going to look at it and go, no, those are brown. But they're technically, I think it was like a Santa Fe orange is what the color was. It looks brown, but there's a lot of orange going in there. A little bit of brown will go in there, but you don't want to hit it heavy like that. Funny story about that project for the 3 people that are listening. Thankfully, I know Tamika, so I'm able to talk with her freely and not have to worry about having a mob outside my house protesting me for speaking my mind or whatever. And when I first did it, the first go round, they were darker than they needed to be, and that was because I printed the picture from a printer that printed darker. I never looked back at the artwork or anything, and I caught it really late. Wound up making a mistake in that project anyway and had to start over, thankfully, because I probably would have anyhow. But I remember, like, I made, I kind of showed her the before, the colors of how it finished and the ones I was doing, because I still had those up until yesterday. I just threw that away. And, she made some kind of joke like, oh, yeah, you had me married to Biggie Smalls, like, what the heck? My husband's not even black, he's Hawaiian. So it's not the easiest thing to do, I understand, but I just start with a white base. You might want to put a little beige tint in there and then hit it with orange if you're doing African-American, and just keep moving those colors until you get what you want. And for white people, like the ones you saw if I did Vans or a lot of the Traeger guys and stuff like that, Meaty Mullins, you can tell by kind of looking at the character that I'm doing if it's white with some red and a tint of orange, or white with some orange and a tint of red, which will give you more of a peach. But it's not. I couldn't tell you like how many drops or anything like that. I've never measured anything except. I mean, the reason I was using West System, one of the main reasons I use West System is because I didn't want to have to pour and measure. I like to be able to just do one pump, and that was a 5-to-1 mix. Speaking of that, I am moving, I think, next week to a brand new epoxy sponsor, which I'll announce in the next week or so. But they're very generous, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from them. So I think I am switching epoxy from West System to another epoxy system, but I'll be talking about that soon.
Yeah. So Shane, I think you kind of hit on it a little bit. I hope, Randy, that got you a little bit in there. But Randy says the Pantone for the colors.
Thank you, Pantone. I knew it started with a P, but it was about as far as I could
go. But I think the key there is you start with white, then you mix a little of these other colors that you mentioned, and this will be recorded so people can go back and listen to what you said on that. But what kind of epoxy coloring are you using? Is it the liquid epoxy, the Mixol, the Eco Epoxy? When you're mixing the white and then the orange base and all that, it's certainly not mica powder. So what do you, or maybe it is, what are you mixing together?
Yeah, so I am 100% now with Mixol for liquids. Next week I can talk about this one now because I know I know I'll be using them. I'm going to be 100% on Eye Candy's powders. So it'll be Mixol and Eye Candy along with another epoxy brand that I'll be talking about soon, and those will be the only 3 that I use for really any of my stuff going forward, I believe.
Okay. Hopefully that answered. Hey, here's from Mark. He says, when you surface after the final pour, how much do you take off? So the way I look at that, Mark, and then Shane, correct me if I'm off base here, is it depends. Here's the problem with that. When you're doing the surfacing after the final pour, there's a lot of times when you've got some warping or other things, wood movement that you have to deal with. So let me cover the ideal situation, and then Shane, you correct me if I'm off base here.
No
But
worries.
the way Shane taught me to do that is, remember the whole time you're zeroing on the same spot of wood, not on the epoxy, always on the wood. So when I go to do the final surfacing, the first thing I do is I go to that. This is what I do because I'm a little worried about chunking things out and making sure my surface bit works. I go to that 0 point and then I go up about a half a millimeter. Okay, so on my machine, you can go in tenths of millimeters or half a millimeter. So I will zero out and then I'll go up about a half a millimeter, because most of the time my epoxy is going to bubble up over a half a millimeter above the wood. And I'll take out my first surface to see how it looks like the surfacing bit is working. Now remember this, some people have asked me and Shane about, do we program it in? Like, do we put something in the Vectric program and then let it do it automatically? I never do it that way. I always do it manually. And I always start at the edge of the epoxy there so that I can get a feel for what it's going to do. And if I mess something up, it's not going to mess up the whole job. So I start about a half a millimeter up. I go through and I mill the whole epoxy inlay and the board. Now, if everything went well, I'm not milling any of the board. So unless I've got wood movement, I won't be milling the board. And then I'll take it down another half mil so that I'm essentially zero. I should be exactly zero with the wood. And I look how it is. And usually there's a thin film still there that spread out and is there. And then I might go down a tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths. It's really dependent on what the wood movement is and what I'm seeing. And I stop when I've got it so that I've got basically the littlest amount of sanding to do to get the rest of the epoxy off. That's when I know I'm done. And it all depends. I start a half mil up and then I work my way down until I don't need to worry about sanding, clogging up the paper and all the other stuff, and I can get started on my sanding routine. Because when I start sanding, then I'm going to take more off. So that's how I do it. Shane, any insights or updates?
Yeah, I pretty much start almost the same way. I start 1.5 millimeters high because I like to try to run the bit a little bit quicker. If I can, I like to try to run across the epoxy at 4,500 millimeters a minute. What is that in inches? Is that like 140, something like that? Maybe I'm not sure, but I go by millimeters only because my handheld controller on the Laguna is in millimeters. So I run that at. I'd like to try to run it at 4,000 or 4,500. But sometimes I'll slow it down. And the reason I started 1.5 millimeters is I found that when my blades aren't sharp, or if I'm not paying attention to, when's the last time I changed them, you'll get a little bit of rip out or tear out if you're moving too fast across that thicker epoxy. And I noticed that it hits a depth of about 1 millimeter. So if I go 1.5 millimeters and I run it, I'll be able to see if I'm having chip out. I'll know, okay, hey, my teeth must be getting a little bit dull. So I'm going to slow it down, and I'm going to, so then I can adjust from there. And that tear out doesn't go down below where I'm going to want to get later. That's very frustrating when you get down, 177. Okay, yeah, 4,000 then, not 4,500. It should be, and that's about as fast as I go, is about 4,000 over epoxy. Somewhere between 3 and 4, never really slower than 3. But and 4 usually works just fine. So if that's 160, 150, 160 inches per minute, then that should be fine for you guys. But I check it because I always pour my epoxy pretty thick. So I check it at 1.5 millimeters below the top of the wood, and then I'll see if I'm going to have tear out or not, and I adjust my speed from that.
So I need to adjust mine up because I start about a 0.5 millimeter up. So good advice.
Well, no, you might be okay though. If you're going slow and you're not getting any tear out, then you don't need to do that.
No, man, if the master says 1.5 millimeters, that's where I'm going. So actually, let's go to this question here. Nick, this is a question. Lots of people that are CNC guys are really into the feeds and speeds. And Shane's just going to tell you he runs it whatever it defaults to. Right, Shane? So
yes, I know it's terrible of me. I've never
even changed
my router speed on the Laguna thing. It just says 300, which I think is 18,000 RPMs. And it doesn't matter if I'm making a piece of furniture or a live edge table or this epoxy stuff or coasters or what. My router runs at 18,000, whatever that is, whatever, however the rotations per minute. And I've never changed it. So, and I tell people like, well, that either means that like all those people are, blowing smoke up your ass about, oh, you have to adjust your router speeds and chip load and all that. I get it, it's all very important. But for some reason, it's worked out okay for me, and I just adjust my speed that I run the bit, I guess, a little bit slower or faster, depending if I'm burning or anything like that when I'm running across wood.
So if you can see on the screen, hopefully you guys can see, this is my tool database. I haven't updated it yet because I loaded up a new version, but real quickly, I don't know what you can see, but basically this is my R.I.P. 15 degree vBit, which is the one I use all the time now, and I think Shane does too. I go with the default rates that R.I.P. Precision Tools gave me, and that's a 30 inches per minute and feed rate and a plunge rate of 15 and a pass depth of 0.1 inches per minute. So that's the specifics of what's in my tool database. And then if it looks like I'm worried about something, that I can manually slow it down. But in reality, I rarely slow it down on the epoxy part. That's not true for like the if I'm surfacing or something. All right, let's go to the next one. Shane, they want to know, do you mix the colors before adding to the epoxy?
No, but I do mix the epoxy a bit before I add color to it. So the hardener and the resin both go in, and I stir that for a couple minutes, and then I add the color to that. Maybe that's what he meant, but
yeah. All right.
Well, maybe he's asking if I get my color blend before. No. So I have, well, I mean, they sent me so many of these colors, and they're really nice. And I've actually been using a few that are like already kind of ready-made colors. It's been kind of fun and save some time. But basically, I'll be going in. I'll have the yellow, the red, and the blue, some white and black, and I just go a drop at a time. If I need orange, I've got red and yellow, and then I'll mix that, and I'll just add and adjust as I go, just a drop at a time until I get the color match exact to my eye, which is pretty accurate.
All right. Any other questions out there? I think we reached through the questions. If not, somebody point to one. I think we've got them. Do you see other ones? Huh?
Oh, Brooks said thank you, and I can't make it's not letting me make any comments like they can, so I just told them.
But you can talk to them.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. I was just answering him. I said, "You're welcome, Brooks."
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so I think that's most of them. Shane and I are talking about some various options for future videos. With Memorial Day coming, I'm a veteran, and I guess I go a little overboard when it comes to the people that protect our country. And I'm not only just talking about me as a veteran Navy guy, but I'm talking about police officers, firemen, everything else. Some of you, if you follow me, know that I do a lot of volunteer, a lot of my CNC work. I haven't figured out how to make money out of it, but that's okay because I get satisfaction. I do a lot of volunteer stuff for fire departments, police departments with plaques and big signs and all this other stuff. So we were talking about running a trial project in honor of Memorial Day. And so some of you may have seen this before, and I thought I had a picture, but I don't want to go look for it. But if you can see this plaque, it says, "We shall never forget their sacrifice," and it shows the kneeling soldier with the cross. And so our plan is, at least mine, and then Shane's going to monitor me and make sure I do it right. We're already talking about it. Is we're going to go ahead and, you know how I did that other epoxy series? We'll do an epoxy series on this, and we will issue. I'm talking to the guy that gave me this this SVG file to make sure it's okay to release? And if so, then our plan is we'll not only do the file, but we'll actually release this this file as a vectoric file so that you could actually use that file to make your own plaque in honor of somebody that you want to remember, or the people who made the ultimate sacrifice for us. And so just curious if you think that would be worth doing or not. Let us know in the comments section after the, at the end of the video. We'll post it into this. And if you want to see that, put that in the comments section and we'll take that on. If not, well, I guess we just won't do it.
Hey, Jay, yes, I always run the vBit first. I like to have pressure on both sides of that bit. It cuts a lot cleaner that way. So even though when I'm numbering my tool paths, the first color is going to have 2 paths. The second color is going to have 2 paths. The third color is going to have 2. So I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 for 3 colors. 2 would be my V-carve, 4 would be my V-carve, and 6 would be my V-carve. But I run 2 before 1, 4 before 3, and 6 before 5. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's just kind of how I've always done that. And then Mark, I think I put out on my YouTube page some overlapping about vectors as well, but I couldn't even put my link in here just because I can't get to the comment section. But I think the next video that Rob and I do, we're going to try to do it from my account. We'll just kind of go back and forth, and then hopefully we can get Mark back in on this too, where the 3 of us can kind of team up and get a lot of information out there.
Yeah, I'll put the links for the overlapping videos, yours, mine, and Mark's, in the description point of this video later when I do it. And the other thing, let's see here.
Look at Mark put.
Oh, Mark's not ready to cut in 4. And Nick said he's seen both videos. You did it just hard to visualize at times with the outlines. Yeah, it is hard. And I think we want to do some more actual application. That was theory and it was hard with the outline. And the one that Shane did where he had the Buddha or whatever that was, that he was going through there. If that's the first time you're getting introduced, it can be real confusing. So we're going to do a couple times between Shane and I where we show some simplified overlapping. And in fact, in this shell we serve vectoric, in this shell we serve plaque that we're talking about where it's only 2 colors. I'll talk about why we're overlapping one, and that's the only one we do, and how that might apply in other situations. And hopefully that will help. We'll try to do that. For those of you that were wondering about my Navy service, I was in, Brooke said he was in for 8. I was in for 6. I was what they call a Navy nuclear technician. I was an electrician in the Navy. And then I got out, and the commercial world was calling and making too many offers of good, lucrative paying jobs for the Navy trained people because they put a lot of school into us. And so I got out and I worked 30 years in the nuclear industry started out as an operator. And so I maintained, operated, and managed plants. I ended up retiring from that company 30 years later, and then went into consulting and did that for a number of years until I finally retired last year and started doing woodworking. So,
Rick, a lot of I let the customer choose. So a lot of sapile is being used by a lot of guys just because the way that looks. Mahogany as well, but sapile, walnut, and I would say cherry are like the big 3 that I use.
Yeah, and so you do have to be careful about what you're using. As an example, one of the woods that I used, and I thought it would be really cool. I was making a at the time, I was making a surfboard out of some wood that a volunteer for a fire department. And I thought it'd be cool to put a shark biting the surfboard in the middle of it. And so it was this spalted, it wasn't maple, but it was some kind of spalted wood so it had a lot of grain and cracking in it, and I had pre-coated it with clear resin, but what I didn't do, remember what Shane said about letting it dry hard, because I didn't do that because I was impatient. So it was still tacky and everything when I went ahead and poured the black color. And here is the result of doing that. Let's see. I'll add that to the stream. Can you see that? So all of this wicking, and then of course I ended up having to plane all of that off, and then it still had a little bit of black streaking in there, but I was able to get most of it out, and in the end it turned out okay. But you really have to be careful with the kind of wood you're using.
That's for sure. I remember that project.
Yeah, that was one of my early projects that you were laughing at me about.
Well, I'm not laughing at you, laughing with you, because I've been through that.
So, yes, in a spoiler alert for the video, John, with the served plaque, would you pour all black, then cut in white, or pour each in the wood? I would pour, and that's what Shane and I were talking about before. I'd pour all black, and then I would, I'd pour all black, and then I would go ahead and pour the white, but it's a little different. Let me do a quick show here if I can, because it should be pretty much open. So let me share this screen. So there's the picture, and I've broken it up into layers. So you can see I've got white text, white ring, black, and then white soldier. And so what I want to point out, this is the overlap that I was going to talk about. So all of this brown color, if you can see that, is the white text. And then if you see this black right here, that's the overlapping vector. So I would go ahead and pour everything black out to here, out to this vector right here. You see the white outer ring? I'm not going to carve that at first. I'm going to carve all black out to here so that I don't get black near my wood on the end grain part of it. So that just gives me a little extra barrier because white doesn't tend to bleed as much as black does. So I'm going to first carve the black, as you said, and let me go over to the toolpath with the preview. And so the first cut is going to be right here, and we'll preview that real quickly. So you're going to see it's all black. And then after I've done that, then I'll go ahead and I'll carve the white. And I've got this set up just not with the actual depths, but enough to where you can see it. And so you can see it. So you saw the black ended here and the white is here. And if you look at the 2D vector, see the overlap there? The black goes out here, but the white comes all the way in so that you don't end up with wood showing between the black and the white. Does that make sense? Hope that makes sense. Okay, your plaque would be much appreciated. Okay, good. Shane, I've tried the swirls like you get in your epoxy and have not had good luck. Do you have any pointers? I think Shane does because he taught me how to do it, and if he can teach me, he can teach anybody.
Yeah, so I use always like a toothpick or like a steak skewer or something like that to make sure it has like a pointy end. And the cut's only this deep, but I'll exaggerate it. That if this was the cut, so I come down to the bottom and I lift and I pull it because you want to make sure you're using resins. The powders that have the metallic, which most of them have that swirl to them. There's a couple different shades of silvers and blacks and stuff like that in most of those colors. That's why it swirls. There you go. You can see right there. So I just kind of pull it up and swirl it and then heat it every 15 minutes and keep doing that until I notice that I can't do it anymore. If you stop too soon, it'll kind of set on you and a lot of that really nice effect will go away.
Yeah, so So in the video that I did do, the 6-part series, if you haven't watched that, you might want to take a look at it. But in the video that I did, I demonstrated the swirling on how you do that with the toothpick, but it didn't. It may not have been as clear. But this is the result you get if you use that method that Shane did. And maybe we can do a video later on just the swirling, Shane, and help people see how that actually happens. But here's the key. It's not a one-time swirl. So what Shane was talking about is that about 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes after you've made your pour, for the next hour or so, give or take 20 minutes, you're going to actually be going in there, and not only are you going to be popping bubbles with your torch like we've talked about, you're going to be swirling. And you're going to swirl until the epoxy gets to the point that if you swirl it, it won't seal back itself up. It'll make a mess out of it. So that's the key. Is it's not just a one-time thing. You've got to keep going back for at least an hour, right, Shane?
Yep.
So that's key. The other thing that I wanted to point out is people have asked us many times about whether we use fast set epoxy. And the only time we use fast set epoxy is if there's some minor repair that we can't wait on or something. Because as an example, if you were trying to swirl this, the fast set epoxy doesn't set evenly. And so you'll start getting chunks of hard epoxy in here, and it screws your swirls up completely. Hope that answers the question. Any other questions over there? Do you see anything?
Yeah, I saw some about staining the wood.
Oh yeah, have you ever stained the wood?
No, so I've never used stain. Because I feel like I use hardwoods only, so I'll never use any softer woods, and all the stains are named after hardwoods for a reason. They want to be able to make pine look like walnut or look like something else. So I just use always a natural oil on all of them. I've never used any stain before, but that would probably work with like a lighter wood if you were using a pine, or even maybe maple if you wanted it just to be kind of darker. That'd be one way to buy, get the, make it look like walnut and be cheaper than buying walnut. I know out here in California, it's like $13 or $14 a board foot where I buy it at in Orange County. So it's crazy. But yeah, I've never used stain like that, but I imagine it would work. I just think by the time you flatten it down, you're probably going to be through that stain anyway. So maybe that would just come at the end anyhow.
So yeah, similar to that, Nick. By the way, thank you for making those USAF ranks for promotion gifts. By the way, if you look at my series where I did the plaque with the logo, at the end, I actually used India ink to make the wood all black all around the logo to try to match the logo. And I will tell you that it worked fine, but there were a couple little areas where the India ink lapped over the epoxy, and I wasn't able to get it completely off. But because it was black on black, you couldn't hardly notice it. So I think you're going to have to be careful if you start staining it with your epoxy in there. Figure out a way you can tape it off or something else, because I think it could end up causing a problem. Maybe not if you drop it off all the way.
Hey, Rob, if you want to let my cell phone in, I can go in the room and kind of show. He asked about the pouring the pocket clear or pouring it with the color first and stuff like that. I've been pouring all my pockets clear every time now first. And so what I'm doing, this is a bit of a change, but usually, if I'm going 0.125 deep, then my first cut when I pour the clear pocket will be 0.135 deep. So, not much deeper at all. And then the outside vector that kind of encloses the whole silhouette of whatever I'm going to be kind of cutting into, whether it's a big circle or anything like that, I take that out about 0.02 past where my final cut's going to be. So what that does, it gives me a very thin, clear epoxy layer, because I'm going down a little bit deeper and I'm going out a little bit wider. So I don't have to worry about bubbles again the rest of the time, even if I'm using a faster setting epoxy. That's what will get you is when it's going into wood. So now I hit every full pocket. I cut out the outline, you know, the whole shadow of the whole piece, pour it clear completely, and it's just a shade bigger than what it's going to be. And the nice thing about that, it doesn't matter because whatever color you're going to pour final in there, it's going to look right through the clear and look like that color on the outside. So it's never an issue with anything. I wouldn't run those through the project, but I'm just talking about the outside rim of everything that I do. And I can take you guys in the room right now and kind of show you what I'm talking about. I think I have 4 or 5 projects that I just recently poured.
All right, we can do that in a minute. Let's answer a couple more questions here. Jay asks, could you do black and white circles in your plaque with a small end mill and not a vBit? This gets asked a lot. People are really into wanting to use end mills, and I'm not sure why it is that people are really interested in using the end mills. So the answer we've given before is, I'm sure you could probably use an end mill. We don't see the reason for it, and we haven't tried it. We haven't worked with that because we've always used the V-carb pockets and used the V-bits, and they work just fine. So well, you could.
He's talking about just for a straight circle. Yeah. Then yes, then I would just cut my circle with an end mill and not need a V-bit at all if it's going to be there, because but it's got to be either a perfect circle or something where I don't have to worry about that end mill not being able to do its job. So as long as like what you're asking there, yeah, I would skip and just run a pocket on that and just use an end mill only on that.
So we got his epoxy and Pigments food safe.
Yes, once they're cured, don't eat it before it's cured.
All right, you already answered this question.
Mark answered that right there, I think. Wait, hold on. All epoxies and tins. Yeah. Yep. That's exactly right. So the FDA, not a lot of these companies sent anything to the FDA saying that. But if I'm selling to somebody who's eating epoxy after the fact or cutting on, anybody's cutting on my logos, they need to have their head examined. So I tell them right up in front, like big and center, you're going to use it as a charcuterie or preparation board. And if I'm going to put it in the corner, you're going to be cutting on the board, and I'm putting the logo on the opposite your cutting hands. If you're right-handed, it goes in the left. If you're left-handed, it goes in the right. And then that way it can stay out of the knife, because a knife is going to leave a mark on epoxy just like it does wood and scratch it up, and then there's no getting that out unless they want to refinish it. I mean, people don't even oil their boards, so I can't imagine anybody wanting to try to refinish one of those things.
All right, so Shane, why don't we end this session? We've been going about 45 minutes, and you with a little you demonstrating what you're talking about.
Okay.
Going in the room with your phone. I'll put your phone on, and while he's walking into the phone, let me demonstrate, if you haven't seen this before. Are you headed in, Shane?
Yep.
We'll give you one more. Phone here. All right. You got your iPhone? You in the room?
You're not going to believe this. It died. So hold on a second because I have a mobile charger. So give it a second to pop back on, and I'll take care of it.
Can you guys tell we're new to this?
It's coming on right now. Okay, Rob. I'm going to request permission to enter there again right now.
You're already in.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. There you go.
All right, cool. Let me get the camera on. Let me flip it around again. Okay. So let me turn these lights on here. Give me 1 second. I know it looks like the lights are on, but they're not really. Not the good ones. Okay. Okay. So, well, it's kind of impossible to see here, but so it was a clear pocket, and now let me make sure this is okay to touch. Yeah, and now there's actually clear already poured into the heads, and here's an outline of another secret one I'm doing. I can't say who it's for, but this is already poured. It's got clear epoxy in the full pocket, and then when I do my last line, I'll be just coming, to about there anyhow. This is me church. You can tell this was a full epoxy pocket before I started that one. And then let's see what we got over here. Okay. Yep, this one too. This one was clear. I'm just cutting in now. I'll be pouring green tonight into that. My wife, I'm almost not even allowed to have this in the house. Like she does not like the fact that I took that job. And then, well, these are totally different deals there. But yeah, so I guess my other projects, they're out in the garage. A couple of them are still on the machine. But yeah, I'll just do a full clear pour pocket on that, and then I'll cut into that the rest of the way. I won't have to worry about being back down to bare wood or worrying about bubbles at all anymore. And you might get some, I don't know if you guys can see, a little bit of bubble action there. But not going to matter because we're replacing all this, and it's better cutting into that than it is into wood. I hope you guys heard that.
Yep, I did.
Okay.
I don't know if they did because I'm not on the YouTube. You guys hear that?
Okay.
All right. So, yeah, Nick Peters said that side pressure clamp is a game changer. Yeah, it really is. Rick asked, what about putting hot stuff on the epoxy? Did you hear that, Shane? Did you hear that?
Yeah. What was the question?
What about putting hot stuff on the epoxy?
Hold on 1 second here.
You're reading. I put the wrong one up.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what's throwing me off. So you were saying the question, but I didn't hear what the
Right here.
oh, hot stuff on the oh you're talking about like like hot food or something like that. I'm sure there's going to be like recommendations on the epoxy itself, what you can do, but I've had this discussion with someone who used some boards for up under their food lamp, and it was still okay up there under a food lamp in a restaurant. He didn't have any issue. But I don't know what temperature it would be before it gets to where it becomes an issue for the epoxy.
So the next question, what 15-degree vBits do we use? I use these R.I.P Precision bits. They're pretty stout, and They're as good as Amana Tools, about half the price. Not that I have any problem with Amana Tools or Tools Today. They make great stuff. And that's what I used exclusively before until I started trying these R.I.P Precision vBits. And so I've shifted over for all of my vBits that I do epoxy work to R.I.P
Me
Precision
too.
Tools, because
And you guys can use
they're a lot cheaper, and they're built stouter. Like their 30-degree vBit is a 3-flute vBit versus a 2-flute or a single flute, and they're 15-degree. And like I said, they stand behind their bits.
Hey, John, you can use go to R.I.P Precision Tools and use code Madman10, MADMAN, and then the number 10, 10. That'll give you a discount with R.I.P that they gave me to hand out to everybody.
Yeah, I have
in the comments, but I can't make any.
No, I have a similar discount, and I'll put it in the description video. So I'll put Shane's and mine discount in there. It doesn't matter. Neither one of us get anything for doing it. It just gives you a break. So we'll give you our discount codes, and whichever one you remember, you can do it. We got a comment that said, glad you guys are willing to do that. And like we said, we want to share the information, and we'll continue to try to do things that help share.
Oh, Mark was asking what the polishing method is we talked about earlier, so he doesn't have to go back and mention it. So I typically start around 120 with the Merca mesh paper, or I guess we call it paper, I don't even know. And then at around 1,000, I switch to their foam pads and take that up to 4,000 or so. But I have other pads from Festool and a few others that get me up around 15,000. You can go that high if you need to, but you probably won't need to go that high. And then I switch over to a 3-step polishing system right now I'm using this 3M system where there's a black, a white, and a blue polish, and then you get a black, a white, and a blue pad. Well, you have to buy them separately, but you do that. That way it keeps track of everything, and that's a nice system. But I think I'm moving over. Merca's sending me out a bunch of stuff and trying to get me to switch over to their system. I think it's just two finishes I would need to use, and from what I hear, they work really well. So I'm looking forward to trying those.
All right, and we had one from John that basically said West System says 145 degrees is when it gets soft, and Mark went on and said it just depends on the epoxy. So that answers the question we were talking about before. All right, any last things? We've been on 53 minutes, Shane, almost an hour. Any final comments or anything you want to say?
Mike asked if they're from Spring Hill. But yeah, Glenn's out in Spring, Texas. I think that was it. And no, guys, I'm just looking forward to being able to hopefully do this a little bit more often. I don't know if probably not a lot of people know, but I left my regular job, and I'm going to entertaining a couple other job offers over the next month or two. But for right now, I'm just kind of catching up on some orders and going to try to get the woodworking hobby kind of organized a lot better. And then just have to make a decision on what I'm going to do next.
Yeah, Mike, you asked where Shane's located. I don't know if he's giving out that information anymore. The last time he gave it out, he gave it out to a guy named Rob a couple years
Sandstrom,
ago.
I think.
Yeah, and he never got another day's rest after that. So
I'm in Fullerton, California, Mike.
Yeah. So in all disclosure, Shane and I are talking.
Mark.
Shane and I are talking a little bit about how we might be able to make $1 or $2 for coffee, and wood's so expensive these days, but we haven't figured out how to actually turn this passion into a business yet. One of these days we'll figure it out. Right now, YouTube isn't the thing because we don't have enough viewers or hours or anything else. So we'll keep doing it, and we'll just keep trying to provide the information regardless. But it's
Creative
a
Builds.
lot of fun.
That guy.
What's that?
Creative Builds. I follow him on Instagram as well. He does some cool stuff as well.
Yeah.
I'm glad he made it in.
All right. With that, then we'll say goodbye. Is that okay, Shane?
All right, guys. You have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.